What is the number one reason why people drive for Uber or drive an Uber? Hi, my name is Levi Spires, and this is the Tip You in the App Daily Drive. There are a lot of reasons why people might drive an Uber, but I want to go over the number one reason. And I've got big news about it too. In addition to that, I want to talk with you about my ride of the day today. It was really funny about how a passenger violated the terms of Uber, and I was really okay with it. And then I'll go over your questions. Now, let me give you the big news. My daughter is having her second baby, so it makes me a grandfather times two. The birth is going to be somewhere in June. I'm super excited about it. And that has so much to do with the reason why I think people like to do Uber or Lyft or DoorDash or any gig work. It's flexibility. It's flexibility. Let me tell you what all this comes down to. Now, how did my daughter's birth and flexibility with Uber work? Well, my sisters live out in Arizona, and a high school graduate friend of mine is a senior executive at the waste management company. And so the waste management open is in February. And I was thinking it would be really fun to do like a baby shower for my daughter with her husband and my granddaughter and some other family members out in Phoenix or Scottsdale or maybe Tucson. We'll go to figure it out. And do that out there in February. I don't have to get permission from anybody to do that. Maybe you, because I owe you guys some videos, and I can probably record out there in Arizona. But I don't have to check in with a boss. I don't have to check in with anybody. If I want to go out to Arizona to see the waste management open and have a baby shower, that's what I'm trying to double do it together. I can just do it, and that flexibility is the number one reason. There's nobody driving for Uber today full time that is maximizing their full-time income potential. I'm trying everything I can. And I know there's more money to be made in other things. Could be why I was an accountant in my previous life or doing anything. As much as I try, being a full-time rideshare driver, gig worker, it's almost impossible to live off of this income. So if you are doing it full time, I'm assuming it's temporary, and you've got bigger visions or bigger dreams or something like that. And then for the other people that are doing it maybe part time, what I've seen them say is something like, I'm retired, I like getting out of the house, or I need to pay off a credit card bill, or I just need to do some temporary income. I just got somebody who said on the channel said they were laid off. And so for the next few months while they look for work, Uber is a good temporary kind of like stopgap to keep some money coming in. But it's just too hard to make a full-time living. So why continue to do it? I mean, we got these apps trying to take, as much money from the fare as possible, making it so hard for us to make a living. Why still do it? For me, I really enjoy meeting the people and the stories. In fact, I've got a story today, later on in the podcast, I want to talk with you about my ride of the day. But and I like being in my car. I like the spreadsheets but it's the flexibility. When my daughter told us last night at our family dinner, hey, I'm expecting our second child. Obviously I'm very excited, if I were a rich man, yada, yada, yada. Have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? That's why I felt just so overjoyed. And so I'm just so excited about it. And I didn't, in my previous life as an accountant, as an economist, working as an entrepreneur and doing all that desk work type of stuff, if I was thinking, let's go out to Phoenix and celebrate that with my sister. And then I'm like, wait, that's the month of the big quarter review. A company, a boss owns your schedule. Let me give you another example. Let's say you are a Uber Eats person. Now, I know a lot of Uber Eats people are trying to basically make just a little bit more than minimum wage right now. It's really hard. And it's just so tough. So if you're making just barely above minimum wage, You could probably say, I could probably go work at McDonald's, and McDonald's will pay me minimum wage, and then I'll probably move up the ladder pretty quickly there and make more. But the reason why you don't go to McDonald's is because there's no flexibility in it. They're going to schedule you. They're going to call you, the night before Thanksgiving and say, "Can you come in, work an extra shift?" They're going to tell you when you're going to work. But as a rideshare driver, I can work whenever I want. So I'm sacrificing income for flexibility. And I believe time is the most valuable thing. Now, granted, you have to work extremely long hours. Today I worked 12 hours. I brought in 200 something bucks. It was tough. It was so tough. It's just a slow time of year. All the college kids left town, and I'm just barely scraping by as a full-time driver. But again, the flexibility. So that's the trade-off. And as long as we can be honest with each other and just admit that's what we're trying to do, is we know we're not going to get rich doing this. And, there's occasionally like, in Halloween, I made like 800 bucks, and yeah, there's occasionally, but for the most part, society and these companies want to pay us just a little bit more than minimum wage. And that's tough. It's a tough place to be. It's frustrating. And so if you're trading your future income, or what the income you could be making by doing this, I think you're doing it. At least I'm doing it because it's time, it's flexibility. And it's not perfect. I would love to make more money, and I'd love to have more flexibility, but there's just trade-offs, and that's what it comes down to. Let me know your thoughts toward it. Okay, now my ride of the day today. My ride of the day today was pretty funny. So I pull up to this parking lot, and there's two people standing outside. Kind of a Hispanic guy. He's looking at his phone. He's a construction worker. It's a construction site when I pulled up. And there's a Chinese girl standing out there also. She's on the other side. So I think he was Hispanic. I don't know. But I'll tell you why in a second. But he's over there. And then the Chinese girl's over there. And I'm like, okay, I'm here to pick up Jose. So that's my guy. So I kind of pull over there. And then he kind of looks at me odd, like, "What are you doing?" And I look over at the Chinese girl, and she waves at me. So I kind of looped the car back around, and said, I rolled the window down. I'm like, "This is for Jose." And she's like, "Oh, that's me." Now, okay, she's clearly not a Jose. Her name was, I'm going to mess it up. I think Xin Yin was her real name. And something like that. I'm sorry if you do, ma'am, if you see this video, I'm sorry if I messed your name up. I can't remember it. But I remember Jose. And she gets in the car, and I'm like, "Well, how are you using that name?" Now, here's the thing. A lot of foreign students, particularly the Chinese students, some of the Korean students at the Cornell and Syracuse University campuses use American names. They called it their American name. I heard some of them say they get it while they're actually in high school. Sometimes in China, they get these American names. And so it's not their official name. It's not their real name. And in fact, sometimes I've seen their real names because it'll be written in Mandarin. It won't be even written in English type of name. But they use these American names, and that's how they get around. And so I wanted to know from her, I was like, why Jose? Why? I was like, I didn't want to tell her it's a male name. She has to know. I mean, she's a graduate student, right? And she said, I thought, and this is her reasoning behind it. She said, "I thought I would get bigger servings at Chipotle." Because she's, in her mind, the people that work at Chipotle are Mexican or something, Hispanic maybe, or whatever. And so she thought if she uses the word Jose, if she does like an online order, she might get bigger portions. And she laughed because she says, that's not necessarily true. That's not how it works. And she said she was surprised when she went to the Chipotle here in town that very few people were actually Hispanic. In fact, none of them were, she said, or something. But there you go. That was pretty funny. So she's violating the terms, right? You're supposed to use your real name and not a fake name and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. That was pretty fun. I didn't feel like she was going to rob me. so I didn't worry too much about it. Um, yeah, that was my ride today, and I have a juicy ride for tomorrow because I had two rides today. But this next ride tomorrow's when I wait to that podcast. You're gonna like it. Let's go through your questions here. Okay, user GD, whatever that is, had a question. Says, does rating passengers low affect getting their ride again? Playing the algo is tough. So we're talking. He's talking about my video where I went into this idea of tip fatigue and passengers, for whatever reason, Americans are tired of tipping, and I understand that. But tips are a huge part of what we do. So I kind of was like, you don't have to tip your Uber driver, but here's some criteria why you should, and that was that. But one of the criteria that I talked about for me when I choose which ride to take is I choose rides based upon the passenger rating. And I've done a couple of times where I've researched it where lower rated passengers just tip less than higher rated passengers. Now, of course, you and I both know there are 4.7s, and I had one today that tipped me a 4.7 something, and I had two 5.0s that didn't tip me today. So it's just the law of averages, the law of large numbers and statistics. But his question is if I rate them low, does that affect them getting their next ride? Well, it would with me because I try not to take when it's slow. I'll take whatever ride I can get, and today was slow. But when it's busy, I'm much more picky. In passenger rating, especially on long trips to the airport, anything below 4.95, I just don't want to take unless it's got some sort of massive surge attached, or it's just going to pay an amazing fare, or it's just timed perfectly. There's no way I'm taking like an hour long ride with anybody below 4.95 because you, my fellow drivers, have rated them lower. I don't know what it is. I don't want to show up and have somebody with bad BO sit in my car for an hour. Or like today, I had a lawyer get in my car and just spent the whole time on the phone. And I knew he wasn't going to tip me. He was a 4.6. And I was just like, you could just tell I want to spend an hour with that guy. And it just, that's why. So does it affect their ability to get future rides? I don't know, but it would with me. So user HI, well, a lot of users. I think a lot of odd accounts here. Why did I go from being an accountant to an Uber driver? Accountants make way more. Sometimes, yeah. The only logical thing I can think of is that you got laid off and no one is hiring. That could be the answer. You have a ton of money. That is not the answer. And you just Ubered to have something to do. I don't get it. You could be making lots of money, especially with your resume. Oh, okay. Why am I an Uber driver is basically what he's asking. Because that's great. I went to graduate school. I could be doing other things. Well, like I talked about flexibility. But let me just kind of just restate this story. I've told it a few times, but if you're new here, here's the story. When I was in Vegas, I was complaining to my Uber driver about money. This was right before COVID in February of 2020. And my Uber driver, Bronislav, said, you should be an Uber driver. And I was like, I don't want to be an Uber driver. But I don't know, for whatever reason, he just said it in a way that made me think about it. And I said, okay, I'm going to sign up. And I did it that Saturday when I got back into town here in Syracuse. I just did it for a couple of hours. And I had so much fun. I really did. I just had so much fun. I thought it was a blast. And I just needed a little bit of walking around money. I needed like $100 a week. It wasn't critical to me. I just wanted to have a little spending cash. And it was fun. And so I decided I wanted to do more of it. Well, COVID hit. And while I wasn't worried about living or dying, COVID made me rethink what is my purpose in life? What do I really want to spend my time doing? I liked Paul and the people I worked with at my company. It was great. Paul, Robin, Brian, Peter, the whole team, they're still my friends. But I was like, I just didn't fit in anymore. There was a part of me that was kind of like, I could see that the company was going in a different direction. And Paul, the owner, the guy I worked for, and I wanted to spend more time being an artist and a writer and a creator. That's what manifested with this channel out of all that. And I just was like, I could probably Uber drive to pay the bills and maybe write a book or produce a movie or get a YouTube channel. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wanted to do something creative. This is all during that summer when COVID was kind of going on. And so I started thinking about leaving. So I started Uber driving, thinking more about it as a living, started to actually be more disciplined in my approach in it. And I realized I can make somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a week. And that's enough to pay my bills. That's not enough to be rich. It's a hard living doing that. I don't have this huge savings account. I don't have a pension from anything or anything like that. I was like, okay, can I make it work? So I took a chance. And so I remember it was right around Thanksgiving, almost 5 years ago to the day. Paul had just put on a conference in Philadelphia, and I was there, and I was like the fifth leg to a three-legged stool. I was like totally out of place. And so I just told Paul when we got back from that conference the next week, I was like, I don't think this is going to work out for me. And I think Paul was okay with that. It was time for me to leave the company. And for about a month or two, I decided to interview with a bunch of companies. But here's the other problem that maybe you young people don't really understand. When you get to my age, companies don't see me as valuable as a young person. They see me as being very expensive, commanding a high wage because I'm older. I'm 51 now. And I didn't immediately get hired. So then I started to have a gap in my resume. And at my age, having a gap in my resume just made it that much harder to get a job. So I just went all in. I said, you know what? I'm going to be a full-time Uber driver. And I still do some consulting. I still do some work on the side. I have this YouTube channel that makes some money. I have sponsors now and stuff like that. The channel's monetized. But how I pay the bills, the mortgage and the health insurance and yada, 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 groceries, a light bill, is by producing, I was going to say producing videos, no, by being an Uber driver. And that's what I do. I think it's going to change soon. I don't think I can keep this up. I think physically I'm exhausted. I'm really exhausted. I physically just can't do this, as though instead of making $400 on an 8-hour night, now I'm making $260 today on a 12-hour day. So the money's getting less. And so it's getting physically harder. So maybe I'll grow this channel more. This channel doesn't make that much money. Trust me. So maybe do some more consulting, but maybe I'm selling myself short. I don't think I can go out there and apply for a job. I really just don't. I mean, I can go get a job making $40,000 a year, I guess, but why do that? I can do that as an Uber driver. So that's why I'm doing this. Yeah, and I know people think it's about money, and money matters. But like I said, I think it's flexibility and time. I love the freedom that I have. And it doesn't feel like freedom now because I have to work so much. But still, if I want to go to Phoenix, I'm going to Phoenix. And there you go. That's what I like about it. Last question here. Phoenix Gal says, any legally licensed drivers, especially rideshare drivers, absolutely need to be able to speak English. If they can't speak English, what makes you believe they can read the signs? Okay, so I addressed the Senator Tuberville bill saying that Uber drivers need to be able to speak English and whatever. I disagree with that. I don't think you need to be able to speak English. I think you should speak English. I think it would behoove you to speak English. I think you'd make more tips if you spoke English. But and it was funny. It's just like, how do you expect to read the signs? If they can't speak English. Okay. Most of the signs, if not all of the signs, are just shapes. And they had to get a driver's license. See, that's the thing is, people are like, well, we need to regulate it. Well, we have a regulation called a driver's license. And we can say that, yes, some states are handing out driver's licenses when they shouldn't. I get all that. But I used to drive a car in Japan with a right-handed steering wheel in a foreign country. I couldn't read kanji, yet I drove just fine. Because signs are signs. An octagon, or I think it's an octagon, right, is a stop sign. And, the yellow triangle is a yield. Red light, stop. Yellow light, slow down. Green light, go. the numbers are numbers. I think it's Aramaic numbers. I think it's the right way to say it. They're all the same. So you don't have to speak English. And people are like, well, what if there's an emergency? Okay. You know what you do? You just dial 911. If I had, because here's the other scenario. You're saying if a person that speaks English in the back seat is having a heart attack and the driver can't speak English, doesn't, okay. Well, let's reverse the situation. I speak English as a driver. What if my passenger is Chinese and we can't communicate? Are they not allowed to get into an Uber? So I understand the frustration that we all have. I think most drivers and most low income people are frustrated by the lack of immigration laws enforcement, right? The open borders policy from, we could say the Biden administration, but go back even further, whatever. It's been detrimental to low wage workers because it's been mostly low wage workers coming in and flooding the market. And we as drivers see that. We see people from foreign countries. It's easy for them to get a rental car and some sort of license and start out there and start driving. And that takes income away from us. And it's frustrating. I get that. But the laws are laws, and what happened was what happened. And I don't think requiring English is some sort of backdoor way of trying to prevent them from driving. And most of them are here legally. It's okay for them to come into America and get a job. Should they learn English? Sure, it makes sense. But it's okay if they don't. Their children will. And over time, they'll all speak English and it'll be okay. That's so there you go. Politics all wrapped up in one thing there. A shout out to my sponsors. We're starting to get some more sponsors back in the channel. Lay's Fit and Red Tiger. You're going to see a lot more things about them. I super appreciate them helping keep the channel funded and growing. It's hard to go out there and work 12 hours as an Uber driver all day and come in and make videos and spend time doing that and being like, oh my God, am I ever going to get paid doing this? So it's I really appreciate it. And I want to make some great content. Red Tiger makes really good dash cameras, and these Lay's Fit mats, I can't wait to put them in my car and show them to you. So drivers for 2025, I haven't said this in a little while. I want you to be safe, healthy, and happy. I want you to enjoy this gig. I do want you to go out there and make as much money as possible as we can. But I want you to know that I am cheering for you. Be safe, be well. Bye.